Josie,
Hey, David-Dee.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much, man. We've been waiting for you. We've been waiting for you, and everybody's excited here. And then I just want to say thank you for coming in, man. Wow. Okay, we got many people who are coming in, so let's just get into it. How are you? How's the weather where you are?
It's not as bad as where you are, I imagine, because Limpopo weather is not that horrible. But it's a decent, warmish, but feels like cold winter type of weather. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm so excited that I'll be talking to you. You know that we've been in this journey for praise and worship teams for a long time. We've always worried about praise and worship team. I'm so excited that I'm finally talking to you and we are having this conversation. So I'm happy. And I've got my coffee, it's a pastor's cup.
Yeah, well, whenever you drink from the cup, do it in remembrance of him.
Don't get me started, man. All right, let's start. Let's start, Josie. I know I've got so many questions that people have sent, and then some people are gonna send some question live. So if you see any question that really is interesting to you, please stop me and then ask. So the first question though is, how did you learn a keyboard? Because you are a genius in playing, and I've never seen you playing drums or bass. Since I've met you, you've always played a keyboard. How did you learn?
Um, the genius part is worthy of correction, but I'll ignore it for now. How I learned was actually very incidental. My dad in the late 80s bought a keyboard for my brother to learn, and then he learned and he mastered it, and then my sisters learned because I'm the last born of six. So by the time I showed up, everybody could play it. And so I kind of felt out of place to not know how to play it. So I learned, one of my sisters taught me a simple 1-4-5 progression. And from there, the rest, I got captivated and started figuring out.
Oh, lovely. My goodness. I would not have thought, I don't know that story. All right. So I'm sure you, but which age did you learn a keyboard? Like, if someone wants to learn, I mean, when did you start? I mean, you are good. When I say genius, I mean, you are that good. But which age did you learn a keyboard?
I think that when I started to play something coherent that actually makes sense, I was probably somewhere like 9, 10. Yeah, approximately there.
Sure. I was just learning how to sing at that time. Um, but tell me, you've had such a great music career. What has been your highlight? You know, you have played with so many artists, almost if everyone who's in a gospel space, I mean, they've either worked with you in a rehearsal, in composition, in the studio, on stage. If you can pick one or two, what has been your highlight of your music career?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head that outstood the rest, because for me, most of the privilege I've had was that most of the stuff I did was very interesting. I mean, I don't know if people remember, but when we did your first recording, season 1, at Ola Theatre, we had motorbikes on stage. It's like, which was, yeah, I remember, and that I think that was the recording that I started showing up on One Gospel a lot with, and everybody kept asking me, "What's up with the bikes, though?" I'm like, no, they were part of the plan. Yeah, so that is outstanding. Obviously, it was something unusual, and then I did a recording with. I remember the day I did the first recording with Benjamin Dube. It was weird because in my head it didn't click that I'm doing a recording with Benjamin Dube. For me, I was just caught up in the preps for that recording. And I kept getting a lot of calls that day, more calls that I've gotten doing any recording. And they're like, yo, man, this is big. You're recording with Benjamin Dube. And so that was weird. We got to do a recording with Dr. Dumi at the Dome. That was very interesting. I think most of the stuff, man, I did stuff with Prophet Nay. That was really cool. That was Prophet Nay's recording actually was so interesting because the one with Mudimukieo and stuff, because when we did that recording, me and Lulu, the drummer, were on fasting. So it was very awkward because we were fasting, the budget for catering, for rehearsal, we freed up a lot of budget so people could be like, and we were a small band, it's like a 4-piece band. So Pastor Nay was like to the rest of the guys, well, since these two are not eating, you can pretty much have anything you want to eat because the budget is more flexible. So you're fasting and guys are having nice ribs there and some interesting stuff. But most of the stuff is very memorable and very interesting.
Sure. I didn't know that when you're recording and you're on a fasting. I'm sure most people, they are shocked to hear that because we don't consider musician as, well, forgive me. I mean, we don't consider musicians as people who are that serious with fasting, and because we are always playful, you're always laughing. But on that note, I wanted just to ask how important it is your spiritual life in your career. I mean, how did it play? Because everybody wants to work with you. How did that work for you? Spiritual life.
So the truth is, for me, the spiritual life is everything, and it's not even because of the work I do. Just as a general principle, our spirit life is the most critical part of who we are. I remember hearing at some point that anybody who has ever done anything significant on the highest level had some kind of spiritual element to who they were. And I don't doubt that for a second, because for the most part, we undermine how much the things we produce in the physical are a direct consequence of the things that are happening in our spiritual life. And this is an unfortunate thing to realize, that people concerned with gospel music undermine the effects of the spirit world, or the relationship between the spirit world and the physical world. I remember I was just having a simple conversation with someone the other day about how we never really, as Christians, think about the impact of our physical posture when we come into worship. It's like when we do everything else, we value physical posture. It's like now, when I'm talking to you, I'm very much like trying to make sure I'm sitting correctly, because if I sit a certain kind of way, I can't be lying on the bed and doing this live, because how I'm sitting is affecting the flow of what we're doing. Even if you're having a phone call with someone who doesn't see you, your body posture is affected by the fact, even if you're talking to someone who's not seeing you. But weird enough, when we come to the presence of the Lord, we are comfortable with any posture. We can keep saying we bow before you, but we're standing up. We can be saying we're raising our hands, but they're in our pockets. And for whatever reason, we assume a posture we would never assume if we were standing before Ramaphosa, even though we don't think he's that great. Well, I don't know if people here don't think he's that great, but you get my point. So our spirituality is everything. It shows up in everything we do, but the misfortune falls on the people who mistaken the spirituality to be the thing you just engage for the few seconds that you're trying to get into a church service, or you engage for the few hours when you're in a crisis. But everything you do, your spirituality should be connected to it. And people who are not saved understand this more than we do, because people who are engaged in ancestral worship and many other different things, they are very particular about the spiritual aspect of the things they do. So it's just unfortunate that we as Christians have undersold the reality of the spiritual. So I said a lot to make a very small point. My spirituality is everything. like, I mean, there's a project I'll leave unnamed that I had to walk away from because of how they conflict with my spiritual resolutions. So for me, if I'm gonna be there just for the benefit of playing, and I detach my spiritual persuasions from the chords I'm gonna play, I feel like even if people enjoy it, I'm not being true to who I really am, because who I am is not a keyboard player. Who I am is not a producer. Who I am is a child of God. So that for me is like, yeah. But let me not take too long with that.
No, I'm so amazed because I play with you. I just don't know this deep insight of your spiritual understanding and revelation, and the fact that you can actually do some of the biggest recording where food is there, provision is there, and you still fast just to release that sound out of worship, not just playing from experience. So that's very powerful. And to those who are online, can you please just comment and say something? Does your praise and worship team fast for Sunday service? Do they even ever fast unless it's the 21-day beginning of the year? Joseph says he fasted in one of the biggest recording. But I want to throw another question quickly. How is it important for musician then to belong in a church? How I know there are people who are employed in churches. Maybe you find that you just play after church, you just walk out and sit outside, or you wait for the next shift if it's 2 services. But in your level, if you're advising someone who's an upcoming musician, how important it is to have a home. And what's the difference between a church you are working at or a church you belong to? Like, this is my home. Like, I belong at IAM Church. I preach for free there. I sing for free there. Benny belongs to IAM Church, and those who are in a team, they sing for free there. But of course, where they go and work, they go and work. How is it important for every musician to belong in a church?
My God. So the question was simple until you added sing for free. But I'm just...
Okay. Sorry, the free thing, maybe we'll deal with it later. I was just saying, my dad can call me anytime, and really, like, I mean, even if he gives me, I like it to give him more than he gives me back, but that's another story. Go for it.
Really was just pulling your leg. But the real core of the question, it's the importance of belonging. I think one of the other interesting things that we like doing that I think we should stop doing is to pretend as if God saves individuals. God, and I need to find a better way of saying this before I get cancelled, but God is building a bride, and that bride is not me, but it's me in connection with other people. Paul says it in Corinthians and Ephesians. He speaks about the body, that we are a body. We are fitted together to produce what we call the body of Christ, which then immediately from that analogy just excludes the idea that I can be saved and be isolated. Hebrews says, do not neglect fellowship. So your Christian walk and your Christian life, just out the gate, before we discuss all the other things of serving, your Christian walk and your Christian life is missing a very fundamental component if you do not have a connection with the body. So if you don't have a community that links you with the holistic body of Christ, you are probably not fully saved. But I know that's a tricky one to defend. So, but I think that's like the initial significant point that I think before we discuss what you're doing in that body, your participation, whether as a musician or whatever, we have to first begin with understanding that you are not called to be saved alone. When John saw Jesus, He says, behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sin, not of David-Dee or of Joseph, but the sin of the world. And so we are called to community. That is the whole vision of Christ. He's not coming to collect individuals. That's why, anyway, let me not take too long with that. Anyway, so I think from that takeoff, if you really are saved, you have to be connected to a body. And so now the follow-up to that would be, if you really are saved and you are connected to the body, you are trying to use the gifts that God has given you to better the body, because the purpose of the gifts is the edification of the body. And you are always trying to use the gift at which you excel the most to contribute, because that is the one you can bring the highest impact with. So if you're a musician, it's a no-brainer. You are connected to a body and you need to be participating with your gift of music. So the part about working now, that's the part that's a little bit hard for me to interact with without being controversial, because I don't yet fully know the systems that the ministries and the individuals have in place to safeguard, one, the relationship that a paid staff member has with the church that does not compromise the relationship they have with the Lord. Because that's a tricky thing to manage. It's like, if I know myself that I cannot be able to be efficient in my execution of my ministry duties in IAM Church if they are paying me, and by so doing, I mean I can be able to predict that the month they fail to pay me, I'll still be able to see my assignment in IAM Church. That will allow me to ignore the fact that he didn't pay me this month. I still have an assignment. I'm just going to go anyway, even though it's going to create a crisis for my rental and all these things. I won't be sitting at home being like, oh, yeah, you didn't put in the money. All those little details, I think they are worthy of consideration for me, but I don't think it's an easy question to answer. For me, it's like, Jesus says, guard your heart, because out of it comes the issues of life. So the process of guarding your heart is the responsibility given not to your pastor, but to you as an individual. So if I know myself that I'm incapable of being true to the calling that God has called me with while charging a fee for my gift, I have no business charging ministries a fee for my gift. But if you know you have a system that safeguards you to be consistent in ministry while getting a salary, well, Paul says there's nothing criminal about being paid from the work you do. It's just that sometimes, he says to the Thessalonians, we just chose not to take the salary because we didn't want you to mistaken the idea that our gospel that we are preaching to you has a fee. And so if you can manage the expectations that people have to realize that the gospel is not for sale, but also you can manage the expectations you have to realize that you are not necessarily you're not necessarily supposed to put the payment above the assignment, I feel like you should just get paid. But the biggest question that I was answering was that you need a home. And if you find yourself in an environment where being paid is getting in the way of you finding a home, again, that's a very good enough reason to stop getting paid and just go to a church that is a home and cannot afford you at the time. Find work to do during the week. And I don't mean like day-to-day 9 to 5 type of thing. I just mean find music work.
So I like when you say you can still do music and still find a way to make money. And then I encourage all our church members to charge very well wherever they go. If you are good at something, charge. If somebody asks me how much do I charge for preaching, believe me, I've got a figure in my head and I'll tell you why, because of the amount of books and research. Even though the gospel is for free, but if I am asked, then I should be able to communicate that. But I fully get it. And thank you for speaking. It's a very dicey subject, and then it differs from church to church. I see Pule is laughing. And then Pule, I tell you, I wish you would comment instead of laughing. Joseph is walking on walking on eggshell.
The thing is, I think the other thing that we really undermine is how nuanced this subject is. It's because there's too many things to be considered, and there's too many things to be considered by too many people at the same time. So it's like, you see, you've pointed out the responsibility of the ministry to think about these things on behalf of the people serving the ministry. And then there's the responsibility of the individual serving in ministry to think about their contribution. Because there's also another domain to it that I think we are underselling. And the domain to it is that do we feel that people shouldn't charge playing at church because we feel that people working in church are the only ones doing God's work? And so if you don't feel that musicians should charge a church, is your reasoning because you believe that they are the only ones doing God's work, and God's work you shouldn't charge for? And so if you start entering those kind of domains, then there's like another weird layer to think about, which is kind of complicated, because I think God's perspective of his work, when he says when he says slaves, honor your masters as if you're honoring God. It means in Paul's perspective, when you are employed by a master and you are serving them, whatever work you're doing for that master is God's work. And so it's like, so then it's like a lot of different domains that show up. So that's why I think that the conversation is always nuanced. And the snacks thing about it is that whenever anybody attempts to answer it, the people who are at one side of the conversation are always ready to dismiss your answer if you're not agreeing with them. So they're always in a hurry. If you're saying musicians should be paid, the ones who don't believe they should, any other subsequent thing you're going to say, they disagree with. And the ones who believe musicians should be paid, if you say no, musicians shouldn't be paid, the ones who feel the other way are ready to disagree with it. It's always, I think, it's one of the
What do you think about being appreciated? Is it something that lifts, or it's something that makes the head to be bigger? Is it good or bad?
So I think I have a weird double standard when it comes to being appreciated, right? And my challenge is, on the one hand, I'm not really a fan of it too much. It makes me uncomfortable because I don't like attention around me generally. It just it really does make me uncomfortable. But the double standard I have is that there's a part of me that really feels like I'm not doing it enough for my fellow musicians. Like I was telling somebody a story about how I met Ngubeko Mbatha. I was actually talking to Bega about it, and how I met him was a very interesting thing. They were at Bethesda in Pretoria. They came with Ndogozo to play there, and when they got there was a lot of bands that really played well, and I thought they were amazing. And then they got up. It was him, Ngubeko, with Sabu and Sabelo and Sfiso Mabuzo, and they just killed it, man. It was like the most amazing thing I ever heard. But the interesting thing about it was that when they were playing, there was no complication in anything they played, but the sound just was unusual. It was like the cleanest thing ever, and they didn't have an engineer. And after that event, I went and had a conversation with him. It was raining, and this is many years ago. He didn't know me, and nobody knew me. and we had a conversation for like a nice 10 minutes in the rain. And his wife was pregnant at the time. He needed to go, but had the conversation. He even told me that the next year he was releasing his album, which he did. That first album he did. And I was telling Bega that, I don't think I've ever had a privilege to just walk up to him and be like, yo, man, that was a cool thing you did. and he probably doesn't know about it. And so stuff like that makes me feel like I really don't think I'm doing it enough. I wish I did it more. I wish I could every now and then have coffee with fellow musicians and just be like, yo, man, you're really amazing, and I really love the work you do. I don't know what it means for other people. I do know that for me, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't like you. I don't like being in a space where I'm complimented too many times, because I know it's got a weird effect.
We love you, Josie. We will tell you, and you are good, and you know it. That's the problem. Okay, but I'm gonna just ask, what is the difference between a producer and a music director? This question is I know what a producer is, and I know what a music director, but I believe that at church we are familiar probably with the music director because we always maybe, I don't know, MDs. But can you tell us, because I guess you have played both parts, and what is a producer, what is a music director, in the simplest way that a child can understand and help our pastors and fellow teachers.
With the risk of a gross oversimplification, let me say a music director is okay. Both of them have a creative element to them. Not element. They are very creative, but oftentimes I think the value of a music director is fully experienced in environments where we are not creating new music, but we are making music that is already their work. That oftentimes for me is where a music director gets to shine. That it's just really just to do exactly that, to direct, bring structure, bring order, bring leadership to whatever is happening. And a producer tends to shine more in an environment where we are building stuff from zero, where they can see a vision for a song and help everybody see it and come together to execute it in the way that he sees it. And so as a consequence, both parties need to have very strong leadership skills, very strong people skills, and of course they should be musical. That is significant. But yeah, for me the simplest distinction is most of the time, and like I'm saying, oversimplification. The simplest for me distinction would be, you find that a music director shines the most in environments where we're just dealing with music that's already created, which is like a church environment most of the time, and producers show up more if we're building from zero.
All right. I think that quite makes sense. Most of some producers, we don't get to see them. They work in a studio. Music directors, I guess, they need to be at the rehearsal. They need to sort of put the music together with the team. And you can actually produce a music being in another country and just get the music, get the files, work on it. While a music director, I assume he needs to sort of interact with the musicians and the vocals. So is it safe to say at church we have music directors? Do we have producers at church, or do you have music directors most of the time?
The average church has music directors, but you have those unusual situations where, like Muso Church produces a lot of music. So you have people like Bule and Wansi being the producers in a church. And most of the producing happens during the church, because most of the stuff they put out, it's stuff they've already workshopped for church services. Because most of the stuff we do for recordings is not congregational. So so if you're trying to get people if you're trying, we're making music for people to listen to and sing along to when they are by themselves. But when you're singing in a congregational environment, for instance, when and this is a random thought that I think is worth being mentioned. If you're singing in a church, it's not really great to throw in a random verse in the middle of a thing. It's like, maybe you could start with a verse, but once we start singing, let's just sing. Yeah. It's like, so now if you're trying to have a solo somewhere in the middle, so now it's just a bit weird for the church. So, and that's what I mean, that for us, when we do production, we're thinking about how this thing feels when you're listening to it. But when we're in church, we're thinking about how this thing can get everybody to join in. Because congregational singing, the objective is precisely that. We're not trying to perform. We're not trying to feed the church with what we have. We're trying to bring them along to sing. So if you are creating music in such a way that it's difficult and complicated for people to just come in and start singing, you are probably not doing well for a congregational setup.
I get you. So just a quick, I'll put two questions together. Somebody asked, what are your tips of improving playing? Last time we had a conversation with Mabongi. She is awesome, by the way. Shout out to Mabongi, and the new album is great. She gave us a little bit of exercise she's doing for her voice. Is there any exercise for a keyboardist? What are the tips of warming up your fingers? It's cold now, you know. People need to be warm, and I'm thinking about the bassist. I'm thinking about the guy who's playing a saxophone. What are the simplest way to improve your skill? And then maybe top it on that, how tips of composing songs. Maybe not composing songs, like composing intros, bridges. This is mainly for your church service. Like, I want to connect my praise and worship song. What are the tips with these two things? Tips of improving your playing and the tips of composing music.
By the way, I did see Mabongi's one. It was really lovely. I loved it. She's such a can I start with the compositional stuff first? The exercises are not really okay. Exercises are not really. So there's different exercises you can find online that address different things. The warm-up ones are usually simple. Then you have specifically tailored exercises to help you improve your speed, help improve your precision. So if you could, just go to YouTube and check piano exercises, and they'll give you the different ones. Of course, there's the hand-on ones that most people who go to school use, but you can get more simplified ones that hand-on is not. It's not that the hand-on ones are complex, but what I mean is you can get more specific ones to where you are. So if you're trying to find things that help you be more precise, so that when you're trying to hit the note, you hit the note you're trying to hit. You have exercises for that. You have ones that help you improve your speed, and also just don't try to do too much with too quickly, because sometimes when you discover exercises, you're trying to do like exercises for like 3 hours or an hour, and your hands start being painful because you're not used to that. So the whole idea to an exercise is you can just suppose you devote 10 minutes of your day to doing an exercise every day. You would have covered quite a lot of hours by the end of the year, and the improvement, you might not see it immediately, but you'll see it show up. So find basic ones that you can find, 3 or 4, play around with them, and then there are also just warm-up exercises that you can find. There's this interesting, simple one. I just don't have a piano to show you, but you can just hit running both hands. So you hit a note. Imagine you're on the C scale. You'll hit your C, skip D, and rise up, and come back. When you land on the D, skip a note, and just do that with both hands. That should help you get ready to start. And it feels weird when you're not used to it, but the more you start doing it, it can get you warmed up. Not just in winter, but just generally before you start playing. And then compositional ideas. What I found to be a solution for me to how I put together stuff, especially if you're trying to build intros and build arrangements. One of the simplest things, but also maybe just a thought before we go too deep and people overdo the intros. Again, congregational stuff. If you're not recording an album and you're in church, please guard your heart, because you might overdo and start having an intro that takes 50 seconds. That's a lifetime in a church service. I mean, when we're doing a recording, we're trying to keep our intros to a maximum of 20 seconds. Because already that's like you're really using up a lot of the recordings, the song space. So if you're in a church, if we on an album are trying to not go above 20 seconds, in a church service, you should be trying to at least not go above 10 seconds. So let's keep that in cognition, because again, the whole thing about playing in church, you're trying to bring everybody in. So even the lead vocalists, please don't be singing 3 cycles of a song before you call in everybody. And you find that, some cycles are pretty long. It's like, you deserve the glory and the honor. Lord, I lift my hands in worship. You deserve the glory and the honor. And then you go to, you are great. And you're still alone. We are chilling, waiting for this big thing to happen. And then after that, it's like, come on, everybody, join me. It's like, nah, man, please, don't do that. We just as quickly as you can, bring us in, let's all flow. So I think that's just a side note, so that when we discuss composing arrangements, you're not overdoing it. But my idea, one of the things that helps you if I'm trying to create stuff like that, like links and arrangements and stuff like that, is the first thing is sound. There's a way that you think when you're playing each sound. So if you put a piano and you start playing, the ideas you have are similar. If you put an electric, an EP, electric piano, you will probably think different to how you were thinking when you were playing the piano. So one of the things I do is just change sounds if you're trying to create an intro. For instance, if you're used to just building all your intros with your piano, just throw in a synth sound and then put in the click that tells you the time of the song and see what you'll come up with. Your intro will probably be more melodic than harmonic because you started with a melody instrument. Similar thing, if you want to try a different feeling, put in an organ sound and see how it feels, and then that could give you a different feeling. And so that's one aspect. You can flip around sounds that will open you up to different things. And then the other way that you can think about it is thinking, and this might apply more to praise songs, thinking more about rhythm than thinking about sound alone. So, for instance, if you're gonna sing a song like I'm trying to think of a praise song. Praise songs are not coming to me quickly. Give me a praise song, Pastor D.
Hey, I'm full of verses, man.
Somebody help me. But imagine you're singing, let's say Mabotag. I don't know if you know the song. Really cool song.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're doing that song, so it's like the rhythm is like 1, 2, 3. So if you're thinking about that, somebody gave me Malibongo, which is also a great song. So if you're doing that, so your downbeats on a 4/4 time signature is those 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now if you're thinking about rhythm, you could always just hit lines that hit between the downbeats. Those open you up to something new. Or you can flip around on the downbeats but skipping bits. So you can decide, I'm going to do lines that hit 1, 3, 4. Skip 2. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I played the 2, but you get the point. So it's like when you fiddle with time like that, or you can only shift 1, like put everything on the downbeat, but the third beat move it to the half position. So all those little things, fiddling with your time, fiddling with sounds, deciding to make your intro more melodic than harmonic, or you can think about it from a chords perspective. Build more around chords than around melodies. That always makes things spice up a little.
That's very good. How important then it is for a band to practice separately from vocals? Because I mean, I'm listening to you. I'm like getting ideas. I mean, I'm a composer, so I'm always writing based on sound. So when you say 1, 2, 3, da da da, I'm already thinking. But if we're in the same room, we'll probably be distracting each other because I'm gonna stop you and try to sing on what you're doing. How important it is to have separate rehearsals, band rehearsals now and then, vocal rehearsal alone. What is your take on that?
I think it's generally very important because when we throw everybody into one rehearsal, there's like a bit of a high pressure situation on everybody to get the idea quickly. I think the instances where it makes sense to put everybody in together in one rehearsal is when you find yourself in a scenario where the songs that you are deciding to do are pretty straightforward songs that are already on record and you're not trying to do anything to them. So if we decide to find a Ntokozo Mbambo song as it is, or we find a joyous song and we plan to do it as it is, just send it to everybody and let everybody listen to their parts. If you are in a scenario where you have resources and you have a musical director that has time, you can even go to the extent of recording everybody's parts separately so that the altos know this is what we're saying, the tenors know this is what we're saying, and after that, pull that all in one Google Drive so that you listen to the whole song and you play your alto part and you hear this is what we're saying. And people work on it and we can just meet and jump on the song and do it quickly. But in instances where we are trying to also push the envelope a bit and be a bit more creative, it helps to have separate sessions so that you have time to really drill into the details with the singers and with the band. And I know that's one of the challenges with worship teams is time. And what I would recommend as someone who doesn't do a lot of worship team rehearsals is that at least you should have a dedicated 1 day a month if you can, or 1 day every 2 months, where you can have an extended session. 1 day a month is best case scenario for me, where we know that we can say this particular Saturday, because most of the people might be working or whatever, we are going to have a rehearsal from 10 until 5 or from 10 until 6. That way, it allows you flexibility to really drill into different things and to really introduce new concepts, clean them out, iron them out. And you can also use templates on how you work on songs. It's like, for instance, one of the things I do when I do a rehearsal, for instance, I tend to be very fussy about how words are pronounced, because if you're singing as a group, as a choir, and you pronounce the word differently, and there's 3 of you as a harmony, and you're saying one is saying, we worship you, our Lord, and twanging it, and another one says, we worship you, our Lord, and another one says, we worship you, our Lord, and all those little differences, even if you're singing the same notes, make the harmony not sound together. So one of the things you can do now as a choir to speed up the time in this longer rehearsal is to build templates that can then help you speed up processes. Like, for instance, if we decide on a pronunciation or of a thing in that session, we can just know that unless stated otherwise, whenever we find the word God in a song, we all agree that this church is not twanging, is God. Or in our church, we are more Model C, we call it God. Or, stuff like that. So that it just drills into the mind, so that whenever we switch between songs, next time if we're doing, you see, so that when we do our normal 2-hour sessions during the week of rehearsals, at least we already have systems that can bypass these processes so that we don't have to kind of think too hard.
We've got 10 minutes left, Josie. It feels like I've spoken to you for 5 minutes. You got so much information, and I feel bad that we're going to have to cut this thing short. You said praise and worship team, they have an issue with time. We have an issue with time. When we talk about Zoyami, that intro, I didn't come up with that intro. You know, da 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 da. Now everyone is playing that song since 2013, and that's Joseph. So it's such a great thing what you are teaching us and what you are saying. One or two things that should not be done at the rehearsal.
Yo, that's a tricky one. There's a couple of things. So I think people should just not be in a bad mood when they come to rehearsal. I know it's a lot to ask for, but I think if people can, because the power of a bad mood is unimaginable compared to a good mood. Like if there's 10 of us in a room and one of us shows up in a bad mood, the impact of that one person in a bad mood on the rest of us is almost immediate. It is much harder for one person in a good mood to turn the mood of everybody than it is for somebody with a bad mood to turn the mood of everybody. So I feel like one of the things that generally people don't really know, I remember there was a day where I felt like my day wasn't going great. So I was trying to think of who can I call to chat to, and that can make me not feel like this day is not a great day. And every person I thought of at the time, I knew they had bigger problems than the one I have. So it's like, as a general theme, you must kind of understand that people are not smiling because they have a lot of money in the bank or their lives are all together. I mean, people have a lot on their minds, but they find ways to, out of courtesy, not burden you with the intricacies of their situation. So if you can, just out of sheer kindness and politeness, try to not bring your bad mood to the rehearsal. So the other things become easier when you tone down that bad mood aspect. And there's also this general thing that some people have the need to feel the need to disappoint people they don't like. And it's not your place to do it. Just leave it alone. It's like, because every time you throw in those kind of random stuff, they really kill the vibe of what we're trying to build. Just because you have a general natural distaste for someone doesn't mean you kind of need to bring it here, because if you bring it here, you're really being inconsiderate to everybody involved. So yeah, for me, the biggest one is that. But generally, my least favorite thing in worship team rehearsals also is the discussions about uniform. I'm like, can't you find a... That thing has always been... It always annoyed me because you would sit discussing, what are we wearing, guys? And then there's a topic for the next 45 minutes, only to end up with Star Black. It's like, yeah, let's leave that alone if we can. But yeah, I can't think of more.
Sorry, but you are cracking me up. Quickly, how do you deal with conflicts? I know I'm rushing time. How do you deal with conflict of maybe a drummer who's not talking, maybe to a bassist, or just a sopranos not talking to a keyboardist? And I'm going to add to this, how do you deal with the conflict, or how do you advise musicians who have a conflict with a pastor? One pastor reached out to me, he says, I don't know how to talk to my guys. They're not listening to me. I'm so angry at these guys. Unfortunately, I need them. And I just didn't know where to start. I just asked him, have you had braai with them? I mean, I know I'm throwing him in a deep end. You can't give food to somebody you're angry at. But any idea how to deal with conflicts in a team, or even with our leaders, like maybe with a pastor, if you're a band, any type of conflicts? Any idea?
I honestly don't think I have a system that works at the moment because conflicts are so nuanced sometimes that some people are in conflict because one of the offended parties is legitimately offended. And so, but sometimes people are unreasonable. So conflicts are always tricky for me because of that. But one of the things that I think helps quite a lot is that we should create systems that mitigate conflict before it even arises. If you build cultures in your, like you see the question you asked the person, have you tried to have a braai? It's like, it would be nice if you don't try to have a braai when people are already fighting. Just create that culture where you can have systems that kind of nips conflict in the bud because it's unavoidable. Jesus said offenses are definitely going to come. Sometimes the conflicts are really legitimate. Because sometimes a pastor, no offense to you as a pastor will really do you bad and not have the decency to be apologetic about it because they are the set man, they are the angel of the house. It's like, yeah, because most pastors have not yet resolved that whole pride thing in their walk with God, and so it's also a bit complicated now because you as the worship leader, you don't really have the authority to be calling the pastor to order, be like, Maram Rutimo, you are the one who's wrong, and so there's all those fancy complicated things about conflict. But I think if we could. As a community and as a body of Christ, build structures that or train each other to, before seeing what somebody has done to cause me to be inconvenienced, just think about what was my contribution. It usually humbles us. It's like if I had a fallout with you as a friend of mine. I mean, we've been moving from now, it's like 15 years now. So if I have a fallout with you and the first thing I notice is what you did wrong, it doesn't help. But if I begin by realizing that there's no fallout that happens without the contribution of somebody else, even if the contribution might not have been intentional or circumstantial, but if we just build that as a culture to say, because I remember having a conversation with Wansi about church dynamics and worship team stuff, and I was saying one of the things that happens is that if you were to go into a worship team, right, and be like, what do you think we are doing wrong? All the answers you're gonna get are pointing away from the people answering. Every time, like without fail. If you will go to your worship team now and be like, guys, what do you think we're doing wrong that we can do right? 9 out of 10 times. You'll be like, no, I really think the soprano is what, but that person is singing alto. Or I really think the band should be doing what, that person is a singer. It's never like, I really think, but I think we should start training people to answer questions like, what do you think you're doing to contribute to us not becoming what we should be? And I think if we have that kind of culture of looking at ourselves first when things fall apart, we would have less conflicts, maybe, hopefully, I don't know.
Yeah, like Josie, you're touching very great things here. And I'm so thankful that you are raising issues of systems. Most of our churches don't have systems that deals with conflicts. If somebody, let's say you are dating in a worship team and then someone falls pregnant, it's more like, let's call the elders of the church. Now it's like, now let's figure out what do we do. But we know that these are human beings. Somebody will fall pregnant sooner or later. Can we come up with a system before? Can we come up with a system before pregnancy? I mean, are we going to go with offering protection to the worship team? Everybody's getting a protection. What are we saying? Like, I mean, in order to say, if I'm shouting at you, I'm going to ask you, what happened to the protection I gave you?
If he says, no, that one I already used. But
How many protection do you need a week so I can supply with the box? Don't make anyone. So, but that's just a joke. But I hear it's tough to come up with solutions before problems because it means you have to admit that at church you are not perfect. You've got people who still have sex outside marriage, and as a pastor, I don't wanna imagine that our worship team is busy on Saturday before they lead us to the Lord. So I will not then come up with principles of solving relationship conflicts. But I like the point you are saying. Say, let's raise the issues. The bride should be just to smooth things, but systems of problem solving maybe should be highlighted way before there is an issue. One of the masterclass lesson we spoke about, I personally don't encourage members on the music team to date one another, because the issue of dating, it's almost like you are trying out. And if it's not working out with a sopranist, you are likely to go to the alto. And then if it's not working out, now you've got this conflict between the soprano and the alto, because the keyboardist has tried out both of these people. So, but if you go out with an usher or or the keyboardist now is giving wrong intros, playing a transpose and throwing off the ex-girlfriend, whatever it is. But I'm just saying these things shouldn't be mentioned within the team. But I like when you say let's come up with systems. Now, I agree with that, systems. But I'm gonna say, as we come to the end, I'm gonna give you two questions, and I'm gonna ask you just to answer these last two questions. I've thrown away all these other questions. I'm sorry, guys. I know Josie has got great information. We're gonna plan a live session where people can come, and Joseph is gonna have his keyboard, and then Mabongi has already agreed. She's gonna come and help us with our voices. We need a bassist and we need a drummer. And then I know, Josie, you've got so many guys who can come. And we're going to call every praise and worship team member. We're going to call you guys to come together. We're going to call Pule. Oh, Pule, you are here. Pule, we are sending an official invite on Instagram. We'll give you the date of a masterclass rehearsal. We're going to call it Music Praise and Worship Masterclass Rehearsal. We've got an interview. We've got those lessons we have done. Now we are left with a rehearsal. We're going to give you the date. It's going to be in Pretoria, so you can come and be there. We're going to have that longer time. We'll separate musicians sometime with vocalists. Last two questions, Joseph. I need to, how to recruit musicians at church. Like some churches, some pastors will call me like Saturday late at night. Don't you have a keyboardist? And I'm thinking, but I mean, I'm a singer. Yes, I know I'm a pastor, but I don't know I don't have a list of keyboardists. But how can churches run away from the crisis of having a musician not available on Saturday night and there's a church tomorrow? How can we recruit musicians at church? What is the idea that you can give us? Number two, how do you choose a lead singer for a song? Is it an MD who chooses a song, or whoever comes up with a song? As long as I came up with a song, I'm leading the song. Who chooses a lead singer at church? So those are last two questions. How do you recruit musicians? How to choose lead singers? And those are last two questions for you.
Lovely. First question has many different answers. The simplest one is pay them a lot of money, but I'm sure that's not what we are trying to say. Usually, I think one of the challenges with musicians is that we pastors don't really understand that musicians think very differently to them, and it's not a small difference; it's a massive difference. We being musicians have a culture, have a lifestyle, have a perspective that's very different to every other member of the church. So, and I'm not trying to make us too unique. Bear with me. So, the first recommendation I would have for ministries to find it easier to not have musicians' problems is to find a musician who can lead musicians. They have to have a heart that connects with what you guys are doing, and then they have to have leadership qualities. If you can find that guy or that girl, you are likely never going to have issues with musicians. But the challenge that most pastors are trying to do is that they think they think they understand musicians because they had lunch with the musician, and the musician was excited and sounded like he's really keen, looking forward to being a member. And they code a few verses to sound like they are involved. But they don't speak your language, Pastor. I'm not trying to scare you. There's a general reality. They speak a musician's language. So most leaders fail at the fact that they want to be the ones who have the conversations. And that's precisely the reason why you are called by a pastor Saturday night, not a music director, Saturday night, looking for a musician, because they assumed they can speak and have an understanding with musicians. It's a bit tricky. I'm not trying to defend them, but I'm just trying to tell you like it is. For the most part, you can get any musician to do anything for free if you speak to them in their language that they understand, for instance. So it's one of the challenges that most ministries have, is that you wave money at a musician. Like if you come at me and be like, well, we can give you 100,000 rands a month to come play. First of all, you assume that money is the thing I value the most, which is a bad assumption. The second assumption you're making, which is a terrible one, is that no one can give me more money than the one you're offering me. And so the weird thing is that most of the time, when a church is struggling to find a musician Sunday morning, it's not always that they are going to a place where they're getting more money. They are just going to a place where they are invited by somebody who speaks the language they speak. They've given them an offer in the language they understand. I can invite a musician from your church to say, yo, let's go to Polokwane, man. There's a small church there. We are just going to play. How much is it paying? No, it's not. There's no money. And they can leave your church where you pay them a fee because I speak the language they understand. And people who are in the industry can pick it up quicker. I remember having a conversation with someone, telling them, and they were telling me they have a rehearsal prep with a certain musician. He was saying what he's trying to find someone to stand in for him at another gig. And I told them, oh, no, that guy is not coming. And it's not someone I know. I've never met the musician, but I told him, that musician, if he's telling you, I've double booked myself, but I'm trying to find someone to stand in for me in the other gig. Like, he's not coming. And he ended up not coming because I know the language of the musician. So if I'm leading a church music department, I can already tell from Monday by the posture of this gentleman that this brother is not coming on Sunday. So I can already come up with solution on Monday that, no, man, I think I need a bass player for Sunday. So I'm taking too long with this thing. So I think the first solution is find a musician that gets it, and trust them to be the leader of the other musicians. That usually would solve a dozen of your problems. The second thing, pay attention, and this is where the part where getting someone who's going to be honest with you, that leader you're putting in, let it be someone who can be honest with you and pay attention when they tell you. Because the second thing you're trying to do is create an environment that is conducive for them to stay longer. Be a choice environment, even if you're not paying them, but create an environment where it is worth them being there every Sunday, even if they get a call to come to another church that's going to give them something. And how you do that is really by paying attention, listening out to what really gets on their nerves and little things that throw them off. And I'm not saying you should be going out of your way to meet every need they throw at you, because some of the needs they throw at you are nonsense. But if you have somebody you can trust who can interpret what the environment is like, because sometimes you're creating a very toxic environment and you're not even aware of it, or creating a very stressful environment and you're not aware of it. So, sorry, that took too long. What was the second question?
Well, the second question, was how do you choose a lead singer?
Yeah.
And then also how to recruit musicians at church. But I think you've covered.
Yeah, they're finding the guy. If you find that one guy, I heard one guy say that if you have a vision, don't think about how you're going to do it. Think about who is going to help you. You just need one guy. If you find that one guy, believe me. In fact, I think if you go to any worship team that you like, just as a challenge and go study it. You'll find there's a guy there, and it's probably one guy.
There's a guy.
Yeah, there's one guy. You probably see the whole team, but there's a guy who's making sure that every person is eager to be on that stage and whatever. So the recruit the right person, he'll get you the rest of the team, and everything should work together. Picking a lead vocalist, first of all, they must be able to sing. That usually helps quite a lot. but I think maybe also just as a thought, a random recommendation for lead vocalist. I've already pointed out that don't treat it as a solo, but also when you lead your song, lead vocalists, please pace yourself, because if you know the culture of how you guys do music, and for instance, if you're saying we're going into worship, if you know that you have a 10-minute slot to do 2 songs, that means you are going to be doing a song for 5 minutes each. If you're in an environment where you guys like stacking up a lot of songs, also understand the strategy around it and the disadvantages around it, because stacking up most songs tends to throw off there's concentration of the church. And so when you're going into worship, you're not trying to be too dynamic in your movements. So if you're doing a 5-minute song, don't be hitting the highest note available to you in the first minute of the song. Pace yourself. Just gently build it up until we get to the place where, because there's a thing that you'll hear on most records, and as soon as I tell you, you'll probably hear it so much it might start irritating you, and I hope it irritates the vocalists also, so that they stop singing it, where they are leading a song and they are singing one note, like they're hitting one note in that song because that's the highest note they can reach. So when you say, we give you honor, we give you honor, Lord, you're worthy, you're glory, like the whole song, you're sitting on that frequency. It's because you didn't pace yourself properly. If you could work it out, then you'd have a lot more notes available to you. And that comes with also picking the right key, so that your key can allow you the option to start here and gradually grow. So anyway, it's easy. It's better to pick somebody who can pay attention to all those things, who knows that there's a key that works and how to handle it, but also somebody who can read the room. For me, the biggest thing about singing, more than the ability to sing, is the ability to read the room. There are people who don't see that, I'm alone here. I'm enjoying this song, but I'm enjoying it alone. And the people I'm trying to lead in worship, they are really confused, and they want to sit down, but it seems too impolite, so they'll just stand up. But so people like that, for me, are not great lead vocalists, because it's not for, you're not doing private worship, you're doing corporate worship. So if you are enjoying the song and nobody else is, you're doing something wrong. So please, if you can, get somebody who can sing, somebody who can pace themselves, and somebody who can read the room. There's a lot more stuff, but I think we've really used every bit of time that was made available to us. Somebody said, how do you pick a key? Sorry, I'm seeing the comment. The easiest way to pick a key, there's varying ways of picking a key, but never forget that the key you pick has to allow you to sing the initial opening with authority, so that you don't sound shaky, because if you sound shaky when you open, we don't believe you as an audience. So try to find something that it's not something that's choking you, but it's something that when you're singing, we can hear that, okay, you're singing. But whatever that is a key that also allows you in your ad-libbing to grow the song. So if you pick a key where you're already this far out, it's like, think about the major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So you're trying to be between a place where your initial octave allows you room to reach do, because you have that movement available to you. So those little details help, but there's a lot of other things. But please come to the live event. Maybe we'll have more time to answer them. Will we have time?
Yeah, we'll have time. We'll have time on the live. This was a great time. Thank you so much, Joseph Makola. We appreciate your time. We've covered so many questions, but there's like half of the questions we did not even touch because of the information that you have. I want to invite people to look out for a poster for a live music masterclass rehearsal. We're gonna be able to have our keyboards there, we'll have microphones there. We're able to sing. We're able to show you some few tricks, and then that's how we're gonna end this masterclass. But for those who have not maybe joined us for the first time, please go to my YouTube, David-Dee. You're gonna see masterclasses, like 4 classes there. And then there's a 5th one with Mabongi, which is an interview. Now, this one will also be on YouTube in a day or 2, or it's going to be a 6th one. And then thank you so much for participating. It's been very great to be here. Josie, any last word as we close?
Yeah, love God and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. Yeah, that's it. I'm done.
Sound about right. Thank you so much, Joseph, for this opportunity. And then may God bless you. I'm going to put a poster on my on here on Instagram so that when people want more information about Worshippers Unite, and I hope that we'll have Worshippers Unite 2025 in Pretoria. I'm pleading to the organizers since you guys are mostly going to be this side also. But look out for the invite for the masterclass live. It's going to be in person. We're going to do a rehearsal very soon. May God bless you and have a good night. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. God bless you.